The Quiet Revolution: How Softness Transforms Everything. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here tonight. I want to start by acknowledging something we all feel but rarely name. There's a revolution happening right now. It's not loud, it's not on the front pages, but it's transforming lives in profound ways. I recently had the extraordinary privilege of interviewing Shontaemarr Marr, a visionary whose insights have fundamentally shifted how I understand personal power. Shontaemarr Marr is nothing short of a revolutionary, someone who has dedicated their life to helping Black professionals, particularly women, reclaim their authentic selves in spaces that have historically demanded their strength while punishing their vulnerability. Their work represents a radical reimagining of what it means to be successful, to be whole, to be human. Through their groundbreaking coaching and healing practices, Shontaemarr Marr has liberated countless individuals from the prison of perpetual performance and helped them rediscover the power that lives in their softness. We've been sold a dangerous myth. The myth says that power comes from force, that success requires constant hustle, that vulnerability is weakness, that rest is laziness, that boundaries are selfish. What if everything we've been taught about strength is wrong? What if the most revolutionary act isn't speaking louder, but speaking more truthfully? What if true power isn't about pushing harder, but about knowing when to pause? Tonight, I want to challenge our collective understanding of strength and introduce you to what I've come to call the power of softness, a concept that Shontaemarr Marr has been championing with remarkable results. For generations, particularly in Black communities, we've celebrated the strong ones, the ones who endure, the ones who carry everyone else's burdens, the ones who never complain, the ones who keep going no matter what. We've created monuments to grit, to hustle, to pushing through pain. We've normalized exhaustion as a badge of honor. And what has it cost us? Our health, our joy, our relationships, our very sense of self. The data is sobering. Black women experience higher rates of chronic stress related conditions than any other demographic group in America. They are more likely to suffer from hypertension, diabetes, and heart disease conditions directly linked to chronic stress. They are less likely to receive adequate medical care for pain. They are more likely to be perceived as strong even when they're suffering. This isn't just a health crisis, it's an existential one. When Shantamar and I spoke, they shared something profound. We've confused strength with invulnerability, and it's killing us slowly. Let that sink in. We've confused strength with invulnerability, and it's killing us slowly. What Shantamar helped me understand is that we've been operating under a fundamental misunderstanding of what strength actually is. True strength isn't the absence of vulnerability, it's having the courage to be vulnerable. It isn't the denial of limits, it's the wisdom to honor them. This insight forms the foundation of what many are now calling the soft girl era, a movement that's about so much more than aesthetics or trends. It's about a fundamental recalibration of how we relate to ourselves in the world. Now, I know what some of you might be thinking: in a world that's already hostile to Black bodies and Black voices, isn't softness dangerous? Isn't our hardness protective? Haven't we needed our armor to survive? These are valid questions, and the answer is complex. Yes, there have been times when hardness was necessary for survival. But what Shantae Marr helped me see is that survival and thriving are different goals. What protected us in one context may be harming us in another. The armor that once saved your life, Shontaemarr Marr told me, can eventually become the prison that prevents you from living it. This isn't about abandoning boundaries or becoming passive. Quite the opposite. It's about establishing healthier boundaries. It's about being intentional rather than reactive. It's about distinguishing between the strength that empowers and the hardness that isolates. Let me share three fundamental shifts that Shontaemarr Marr identified as essential to this transformation. First, we must redefine strength itself. Strength isn't just about what you can endure, it's about what you can feel. It's not just about how much you can carry, it's about what you have the wisdom to put down. Second, we must reclaim rest as a birthright, not a reward. In a culture that glorifies exhaustion, choosing rest is a radical act. It's not something you earn after everything else is done, because everything else is never done. Rest is the foundation that makes all other achievements possible. Third, we must recognize that boundaries aren't walls, they're bridges to more authentic connection. When we clearly communicate our needs and limits, we create the conditions for genuine intimacy rather than resentment filled obligation. These shifts sound simple, but they require unlearning generations of conditioning. They require us to question core beliefs about our worth, our role, and our right to prioritize ourselves. One of the most powerful moments in my conversation with Shontaemarr came when they shared a story about a high achieving client, a Black woman executive who had built her entire identity around being the one who never breaks, never complains, never needs help. This woman had risen to extraordinary heights professionally. She was admired, respected, even feared in her industry. But she was also profoundly alone, chronically exhausted, and increasingly disconnected from any sense of joy or purpose. She came to me, Shontaemarr recalled, not because she wanted to change, but because her body was forcing the issue. Panic attacks, insomnia, chronic pain. Her body was screaming what her words couldn't say. This isn't working anymore. The journey this woman embarked on wasn't about becoming less ambitious or less excellent. It was about expanding her definition of success to include her well being. It was about recognizing that her worth wasn't tied to her productivity. It was about giving herself permission to be human with all the messiness, vulnerability, and interdependence that humanity entails. Over time, something remarkable happened. As she learned to soften, to rest, to ask for help, to say no without guilt, her leadership actually improved. Her creativity flourished. Her relationships deepened. The parts of her life that had withered under the weight of constant striving began to bloom again. The most beautiful part, Shontaemarr Marr told me, was watching her discover that softness wasn't weakness, it was her superpower. The very qualities she had suppressed, her empathy, her intuition, her emotional intelligence, became her greatest strengths as a leader and as a human being. This story illustrates a profound truth. When we embrace our full humanity, including our vulnerability, our needs, our limits, we don't become less powerful. We become more whole. And wholeness is the foundation of sustainable power. Scripture reminds us in Matthew 11:28, 30. Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me. For I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. Even in our spiritual traditions, we find this invitation to gentleness, to humility, to rest. Yet somehow we've created cultures, even within faith communities, that glorify burnout and self sacrifice to the point of self harm. Shontaemarr's work is helping people reconcile these contradictions, finding ways to honor their commitments to others while also honoring their commitment to themselves. This isn't just a personal transformation, it's a collective one with profound implications for our communities, our workplaces, and our world. Imagine workplaces where vulnerability isn't penalized but valued, where rest isn't stolen but scheduled, where boundaries aren't seen as limitations but as clarifications that enhance collaboration. Imagine families where strength isn't measured by how much pain you can hide, but by how honestly you can share, where asking for help isn't shameful but normal, where interdependence is recognized as more sustainable than independence. Imagine communities where care flows in all directions, not just from the strongest to the most vulnerable, where everyone's needs matter, where no one has to earn the right to be treated with dignity. This is the world that becomes possible when we expand our understanding of strength to include softness. Now, I want to be clear about something. This transformation isn't easy, especially for those who have been conditioned to equate their value with their productivity or their ability to endure hardship. As Shontaemarr Marr emphasized in our conversation, unlearning is harder than learning. It requires us to question not just what we do, but who we believe ourselves to be. This is particularly challenging for Black women who have been socialized to be the backbone of their families and communities, often at great personal cost. The strong Black woman trope isn't just a stereotype, it's an expectation that has been internalized and reinforced through generations. Breaking free from this pattern requires more than individual willpower. It requires community support. It requires new models and examples. It requires safe spaces to practice vulnerability. It requires patience with the inevitable discomfort that comes with change. But the alternative, continuing to sacrifice our well being on the altar of strength, is no longer sustainable. Not for individuals, not for communities, not for our world. As Shontaemarr so powerfully stated, the revolution we need won't be won through force. It will be won through the courage to be soft in a hard world. This is the invitation before us tonight, not to abandon our strength, but to expand it, not to become passive, but to become more intentional, not to care less about others, but to include ourselves in the circle of our care. The journey towards softness isn't about diminishment, it's about expansion. It's about reclaiming the parts of ourselves that have been sacrificed in the name of survival. It's about moving from merely surviving to genuinely thriving. In the words of the poet Naira Wahi, be softer with you. You are a breathing thing, a memory to someone, a home to a life. You are a breathing thing, a memory to someone, a home to a life. I stand before you today, not just as a speaker, but as someone on this journey myself, someone who has felt the weight of expectations, the pressure to perform, the fear of disappointing others, someone who is learning day by day what it means to choose softness in a world that rewards hardness. And I invite you, no, I challenge you to join this quiet revolution, to examine the beliefs about strength that may be limiting your life, to question the expectations that keep you exhausted, to consider what might be possible if you gave yourself permission to rest, to feel, to be imperfect, to need help. This isn't just about personal well being, though that would be reason enough. This is about creating a more humane world for all of us. Because when we each claim our right to be fully human with all our strengths and vulnerabilities, We make it safer for others to do the same. The revolution of softness begins with a single courageous act, the decision to no longer abandon yourself in the service of others' expectations. It begins with the radical recognition that your well being matters not because of what you do, but because of who you are. Today, I ask you to make a commitment, not to me, but to yourself. Choose one area of your life where you've been hardened by necessity or habit and experiment with softness. Set one boundary that honors your needs. Give yourself permission to rest before you're completely depleted. Ask for help before you're in crisis and watch what happens, not just in your life, but in the lives of those around you, because your courage creates permission. Your self care creates possibility. Your softness creates space for others to be soft too. The world doesn't need more exhausted heroes. It needs whole, present, authentic humans who understand that true strength includes softness. It needs you, all of you, not just the parts that produce and achieve and endure. In the words of Shontaemarr Marr, your softness is not your weakness, it is your power. Your rest is not laziness, it is your birthright. Your boundaries are not selfish, they are necessary. Your needs matter, your joy matters, your peace matters. You matter. This is the truth that can transform everything. This is the quiet revolution that begins with you. Thank you